Okay. So, right, like I said, this workshop is going to be over telling a story in 3 dimensions. What do I mean by that? I mean, I think a lot of journalists, or as journalists, we kind of get, in especially when we're dealing with deadlines and stuff like that, we get caught up in this cycle of writing in a vacuum where we're purely writing for, we're covering the event exclusively as if it existed on its own. And I think that the best way to do journalism is to think about any given story in a 3 dimensional framework of past, present, and future, right? And so, kind of along those lines, we'll go ahead and start with past. A big thing that I think a lot of journalists don't realize is that having a sense of history or an understanding of your community or of your state or whatever you're covering, your audience, is really crucial into understanding what the kind of environment or like the atmosphere in terms of news is in that community. So, to that end, I think a really good thing to do if you're looking for stories or if you're just looking, you're covering, let's say, like a new construction project or something like that. Go to start with the cougar, I would say, and look for past things that have happened. And you can also use this if you're looking for stories. Like, okay, so we're under the construction tag right now, right? And what we can do is we can go back a few years and we can see what's been and this was a big one. This is one that I wrote, uh, and kind of made me realize this. Is I don't know if you've noticed the signs around campus that say campus lighting project in response to your feedback or whatever. I see those around. Turns out they've been up for a while and nothing's been done about it, and this was something that was promised a long time ago, but the kind of hope for institutions and people like that, I think a lot of the times is that people will get outraged about something and they'll be like, okay, we're working on it. We're going to finish it in 3 years or whatever. And then by the nature of a college is that every 4 years, the majority of the people there are going to cycle out, so after 3 years go by, most of the people who are there have forgotten that it was ever even promised, so what you want to do is go back and look through and see what the university has said about certain things in the past. And this can help you find stories and it can help you flesh out current stories, so like, let's say if they, pretty recently as a part of their centennial revitalization plan for the university released like a thing saying that they were going to work on lighting, and it's like, okay, well, what happened to the just lighting project, and then you can start asking different questions when you are interviewing somebody about like, okay, well, lighting has been an issue at the university for a while. People have been saying that something's going to happen about it. Why is this going to be different? And then you're going to get better answers, and you're going to create a better record of stuff that future journalists can go back and look through. And let's say that, like, again, the lighting project doesn't happen, and we're talking 3 years from now. Well, now a journalist 3 years in the future can come back and look at the article you wrote 3 years ago that said, like, where you asked the person in charge, like, hey, this is the second time you're doing this. How's it going to be different? And then once it rolls around to the third time, you can look back at the second time and be like, okay, well, y'all said that this was going to be the last time you're going to get it this time. What's going on here? And so you're trying to create that kind of historical record of holding people accountable for future actions, right? And so that's kind of where the future part comes in. So when you're writing a story in the present, you're really drawing off of things that have happened in the past, okay, and then creating a, record for the future for people to go back and look at and see what promises were made or what commitments were made, that sort of thing. And, I think it's really beneficial to, like, if you want to go even further, back to look through stuff, this won't have quite the same, like, newsworthiness or stuff like that, but you can get some softer news stories about looking at the old cougar. I mean, we were one of the oldest student organizations on campus. We're almost as old as the university itself. This is a article, or this is a copy of the cougar that was published when we were still at junior college in 1932. And you might say, like, what impact or what relevance will something written in 1932 have on stories we write now? And the answer is kind of a lot, because there's a lot of stuff coming up these days socially that really has roots in the early history of our country, you know, and this applies to everything from like, you know, the way we talk and deal with money to like stuff like social problems like racism and stuff like that, you know. And in this kind of day and age of like misinformation and stuff, a lot of, you know, if you don't know the history for a fact from primary sources, which this is, you know, there's all this room for people to kind of skew your opinion. And as a journalist, if somebody else is skewing your opinion, then you're going to go on and skew everyone else's opinion, right? So you want to have a really solid understanding of the history, and stuff like this can help. Like I'm, and you can even get like fun little like soft news stories. Like I did a couple stories that were like from the archives, you know, where it was like looking back at UH's history, and it's interesting too to see like, you know, I feel like we're often portrayed as this sort of like soulless commuter school when you know, in reality, there are things that have stayed consistent about UH culture throughout its entire history. You know, things like diversity, you know, diversity and inclusion. This has been a huge thing all the way up until like, you know, if you come here to the office, I'm sure you've seen all the old Cougars. We have every single copy of the Cougar on our shelves from about 1963, I want to say, right about the start of the civil rights movement to around 2000. And it was a daily paper at the time. So, you know, we have such a massive resource of information here that is not available online or anywhere else. That if you come into the office and look through these, I guarantee you'll find some stories because people were writing crazy stuff back then. And you'll read about stuff, or you'll see people quoted that, you know, you can see landmarks are named after the university. The big one for me was Lynn Houston. And that's actually a really fascinating story, but I'm sure you've heard of Lynn Houston Park. Well, she was actually our first Black homecoming queen, and the Cougar covered her heavily when she got coronated, and she actually ended up dying under very mysterious circumstances that still have not been solved to this day, roughly like 3 years later. And so that's the type of thing that you can really find, and like that's still a point of interest for a lot of people to this day, is what happened to Lynn Houston, you know, and we still don't know. And that's a story out there that probably can get solved. It can get written, you know. It's just about taking the time, putting in the effort, going back, looking at the history, you know, and from there really looking for sources of information that other people don't have. But I know I've been talking a lot. Nancy, is this making sense? Are you you have any questions?
I actually lost you. I didn't know. I was trying to text in the Slack to see if you noticed, but I guess you didn't because you were.
Yeah, that's my bad. I was kind of in
it. Yeah, I lost you. I think it's the connection. It's
okay.
that connection.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I kind of missed some stuff.
I'll slow down a little bit. Yeah, really, the point I'm trying to get across is that it's very important to understand the history of your community to write something, you know, or I guess a better way of putting it would be it's important and it can benefit you a lot because, you know, you see like events don't occur in a vacuum, if that makes sense. Like they're always in response to something else that happened before, you know, and if you don't know what that thing is, then you don't really have the full picture of what's going on here, why these decisions were made and stuff like that, right? And so that's one beneficial aspect to understanding the history of the Cougar, your audience, or whatever. And then another is, you know, what was I going to say? Kind of building off of the past, because, you know, the news isn't like right now, it's kind of disjointed. It's just like stories happen, you don't know what's going on, and nothing ever, like no one ever goes back to see like, hey, we covered this, did it actually get fixed, right? So what I'm trying to say basically is there's a lot of value to look back in, you know, previous articles and stuff like that, and see these promises that were made, see these things that we were covering, and then try to connect them to today and see like, has this thing been done? You know, what's going on with it? Does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And really, it's the type of thing where I think you kind of, in order to see the value in it, you have to find something, right? So, you know, if you want to, yeah, this would be a good exercise. Maybe we'll take 5 minutes really quick. Go to the Daily Cougar website, go to the news section, and then just find a story from like a year ago that we haven't had an update on. and then we'll see what we can find. I'll look as well, but we'll take about 5 minutes at 120.
It has to be from last year.
No, it can just be from like, try to get something from like before, like at least a year old, you know. But it can be more than a year old as well.
Are you still looking, John?
Yeah. Are you good? You found something?
My internet is acting weird.
Okay,
But,
gotcha. Well, I
it
pulled
took
up
me
a
all
few
the way
things.
to.
What was that?
It took me all the way to 2007.
Oh yeah, if you go all the way, if you click like the other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did that to me too. Well, anyway, what's up, Robert? But so I found a couple things here that are kind of interesting. So what really stood out to me is this person. So I don't know how much y'all are aware of this, but like with the new DEI stuff, the LGBTQ center could just be gone. Like they're just going to get rid of it. I don't know that for a fact, but I think that's certainly something that could happen. And you look at this article, it's about this former LGBTQ resource director retiring. But what I found interesting in it is, okay, so they say after moving to the Student Center North, they start to see 2,000 to 3,000 students a semester. Now, on the one hand, this person would be a very good source for a story about if, assuming that the new DEI standards mean that they're getting rid of stuff like the LGBTQ Center, this would be a good person to try to track down, try to reach out to. And then also, it's a good question of like, okay, you were seeing 2,000 to 3,000 students back in 2021. How many were they seeing recently? And what's going to happen to these students? Where are they going to go now? Now, assuming that this gets taken away. And Robert, what we were doing here. Oh shit, I still got you muted, don't I? I don't know why it does that by default, but so basically what we're just doing is talking about telling a story in 3 dimensions, past, present, and future. And I'm trying to like right now just kind of emphasize the value of looking back at past stories and then following up on them. I really think that the Cougar itself is probably one of the best resources for finding pitches and stuff, because like I was telling Nancy, people make promises, people make commitments, and then the nature of a university community is that they kind of cycle in and out every 4 years. So 3 years on from a promise, most of the people are gone. And so that creates a very easy situation for the university to just say shit, and just be like, oh, you guys are concerned about this. Well, we're working on it. It'll take 3 years, and you see that pretty much all the time, like just with Agnes right now. I think they've said that it's going to take 3 years to retrofit that building. Doesn't seem like a 3-year project to me, but I don't know much about construction. So, but right now we're just kind of looking through old articles on the Cougar and seeing what we could update on. Now, this is kind of interesting. This is a bit of a stretch. He developed an app to track COVID-19. How far did that app go? What ended up happening with it? This isn't super great, but it's something. See, College of Nursing Facilities serves Houston homeless. This I think would be a good thing to tie in. So I don't know if y'all heard recently, but a bunch of people were handing out food near a library or something like that, and they got like cited by the cops for giving food to the homeless. So it would be interesting to see, is the College of Nursing still doing something like this? And if not, why not? And do they have any plans to do something like it? Let's see what else we got. Are they still doing this? This was in 2020. College is only getting more expensive. Who benefited from this? How many people? Did it work? Is it still a thing? I think Cougar Promise actually is still a thing. But what's going on with it? How's it work? That type of thing. And then other than articles, this is the type of thing that you should keep an eye on too, is the university likes to be like, we are helping the community, da 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 da, and really it's like, I don't blame the university for what they like, university's got to grow. It's just going to buy more property, but at the same time, the way they message it as if they cared about Third Ward, they don't. They don't. It's just not in their nature to care about Third Ward, but they try to pretend like they do. And this is something, all right, that they've been touting for a while. And something very interesting about this initiative is that it's actually run by Sheila Jackson Lee's husband. And which, once you get into politics and like these weird positions in public universities, to me, it starts to kind of sound like maybe this dude isn't doing anything and has a job because of his wife. I don't know though. Let's take a look, right? Let's see what they're up to. Nick, okay, I vaguely remember this. Let's see. Okay, that's just a picture. Is there an article here? Okay, so this is an initiative that we've run that is like okay, and the last update it looks like we've gotten was August 23, 2022. Let's see what it started as. So we had a December in a year, and it's just looking like we're not getting a whole lot of updates, and it's been almost a year. Let's see, and see, this is where they would be making promises right here, right? So yeah, let's see. Looks like they're partnering with schools. Cougar's Tutors, the Cougar Tutors program. What's this? Who are given priority for tutor sections? Okay, so it's saying that they have some sort of program with UH teachers going down to third ward schools to tutor. Are they still doing this? What's going on with it? What what students have done it? What are their opinions on it? How do they feel about the program? That sort of thing. It's a good place to look for stuff like this. Let's see. Okay, so now they're getting to economic empowerment. All right, so in-person structure of the SURE program. I think I vaguely remember this. This is like a training like program, and see they're throwing around a lot of fucking money here. This is $4.2 million. And honestly, for $4.2 million in a single year, I would expect more than a yearly update. So that's another point of concern for me. Let's see, what is this enrollment data for? But yeah, we don't have to go through all of this, but okay, here's another thing. Josh Martin. UH and TSU's SGA and Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church plan an evening cleanup. 180 volunteers signed up, and a psych coordinator just planning bunch bar. Not gonna see much postponed. And will be rescheduled. I don't think it was. I don't think they ever did it. So that's something to think about. And this is the guy who runs it, Dr. Owen Lee. It's actually interesting too, because another kind of shows you the history here is that this guy was at school and was in the paper a lot when Lynn Hewson was in school. He was here. He was right on the cusp of like the civil rights movement, right on the cusp of like integration and stuff like that. So he's an interesting character. However, from my conversations with him, I have gotten a little bit of a worry that maybe, there's not a whole lot going on with this program. But yeah, this is something to think about. And then, let's see if we can find something similar. But this is all kind of part of the history too. It's like these active programs. What have they done? What are they doing? What are they planning to do? It's all of these things exist in a three-dimensional framework as opposed to being inside of a vacuum. UH initiatives, perfect. Okay. Success. UH enforced Board of Studies Provost Prize for Creative Writing, Peer Assistance Use in GPS. Okay, this is interesting. When was this written? Doesn't say. I would be interested to see if this is still going on. If this is not a whole lot of information for what they're billing as like a partnership between 2-year institutions and 4-year institutions. I think it would be interesting to maybe reach out to some of these community colleges and seeing if they're getting the support from their 4-year counterparts that this is making it appear that they're getting. Now let's see, what else can we talk about? And then future really just deals with like future and the present really only exists for like a split instance. So like really it's the future and the past that interact the most, right? And so like promises are huge, I've emphasized it enough, and they kind of exist both in the past and the future, because you're in the past making the promise and then it's supposed to happen in the future. And the university loves to do this shit, right? Let's look at Walk in the Dark. This is something. Okay. When the fuck was this written? Okay. So the idea with the Walk in the Dark program, right, is that you and a bunch of cops get together at like 9 p.m. on your time, and you walk around the campus that ostensibly they patrol every day and night, and you point to dark areas, right? To me, I struggle with thinking of something dumber than that right there. Okay, like, bro, can you not see darkness? Like, and then on top of that, how many fucking walks in the dark do you need to take to figure out where it is dark? And so, and how many, like, because of this program, how many lights have been installed? I'm gonna guess 0. And so this is another thing to look into. I have no idea when the fuck this was written because it gives you absolutely no information. But I would guess, quite a while ago. Now, let's see. So this is from 2022. This is another one. Okay, so it's been going on for at least a year. And these are the types of things that you can also public information act request. If they're not going to give you the info, just send a message, and be like, I would like any information relating to, action taken as a result of the UHPD Walk in the Dark program. And it might take a couple tries to get exactly the info you want. And by a couple tries, I mean like 2 months because the timeline stretches out so long when you're getting public info. But yeah, it's just like, look for promises, look for commitments, look for that type of thing, and see what's happened, wow. They drafted a bill about it. Now this bill, oh my God, this was drafted in 2018. It's been 5 years of walking around in the fucking dark with a bunch of narcs. Okay? Like, I would think with 5 years of walking around UH campus under your belt, you would figure out where lights are needed. But it's still dark. Weird, I don't know. Something to look into, but like, let me tell y'all, this fucking university is littered with commitments and promises and shit like that. Like, let's just take a look at UH parking. Let's see, parking and transportation services. And see, because, they're parking, they, of course, need a blog, right? And this is where you're going to find some, let's see, this is commonly asked questions, probably won't be a lot of commitments. But this is another place to look through, adjustments made. I think maybe a good place to check would be like, okay, we only go to 2020. Oh no, here, 2021 is at the bottom for some reason. Student parking. I'd be interested to see if this happened. Merging the faculty and staff in ungated parking lots. But, all this, I think we pretty much have enough here, but all this is really to say, look into the past, don't think of stuff as like old news, that is probably one of the best sources you can find for finding stories and finding other sources. But, that's pretty much all I had for today. Robert, do you have any questions?
No, I don't think so. I don't know if you heard about in the news, maybe about that East End thing. Do we consider the East End part of our community, honestly? Because the East End's right there. I mean, we're technically in Third Ward, but I think they're doing a project where there's going to be a bunch of like underpasses, so people won't be stuck by trains and stuff.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, I think it'd be a bit of a stretch.
Yeah,
that chronicle thing. But I mean, if you can find students who are impacted by, so we are a commuter school, so you could anchor it in that, I don't know if this would necessarily be juicy enough in and of itself, but I think it could be a part of another story about commuters, and like how the construction and the changing city is like impacting our ability to get to class and stuff like that. Yeah, and you could even pivot that off of like, if you could make this seem like a part of like a bigger overhaul of like city infrastructure, because we all see construction all over the place and there's a lot of shit getting done. And so like, if it is an abnormal amount of construction going around citywide, I think that is more than relevant to our students as a commuter population. But in and of itself, I wouldn't say this is quite enough, but I do think if you could tie this in with like 610 changes, how they close that exit from 45 to 610 South, and stuff like that, I think that could go a long way.
And like source-wise, who would you think, who comes to mind in this situation?
It gets hard, because you'd have to find like students who commute and stuff like that. I would say if you're looking for pitches, I wouldn't necessarily do this just because it's
city
hard, and I think you find something easier. Like I think maybe like soft news about like what's going on in the summer and stuff like that, and then maybe something that was interesting to me, and this is going to be concerning to y'all, is I didn't realize the university did this, but this is kind of external relations, I guess. or Valenti post graduation. Oh God, where is it? Maybe I can't find it. Anyway, they're like they make little you could like talk to people who are graduating and see if you know anybody who graduated or is graduating and see if like what the job landscape is like. The reason I was trying to look for some Valenti stuff is because they have like a little printout that's like the percentage of students that graduate from Valenti and make it into a related field. It's 9%.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's rough. But that's just because I kind of think that, as journalism students, what you do in the classroom matters almost not at all. And so it all just matters on like what you do outside of it. That's something to consider. But, post-graduation could be a story, about like changing job market and stuff like that. If you can find people who are struggling, which we could use Twitter or Reddit or something like that for. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all. Is there any other questions?
When is first roar? Well, because I saw Starnes post something about that in sports. So when are you going to start needing to collect stories for that?
Pretty soon. I'll have more this Friday for y'all on that. We can go over, but yeah, we'll have to start thinking about that soon. But that is really just like you can do like really soft news articles that don't need sources, just like fun places around campus and stuff. It's really just like fluffy.
Yeah, I took some pictures of the old one too to get some ideas.
Okay, yeah, I'll like probably hand out a few copies of the old one too to show y'all what to expect. But yeah, that'll be Friday. But if there's no other questions, that's pretty much it. I'll sit down here.
Try and talk to you afterwards if we can.
Okay, got you. Yeah, definitely. But okay, yeah, that's pretty much it. Nancy, are you good?
What are we doing on Friday?
This is just like an ed board meeting or whatever. Nothing crazy. But
Oh, it's a e-board meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not invited.
What's up?
So I'm not invited.
Not yet. We'll have more jobs when the school year starts, though. I already said that I think you'd be good for a campus position. So, in time. But all right. I think that's pretty much it. I'll put this recording up later and send out the invite for next week.
Okay.
All righty. I will. Here, let me. Okay, I think I'll just have to call you, Robert. 1 second.
Okay.